All right, and thank you for watching. Goodbye. No, just kidding. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. It's been a little while since we last all spoke like this, as in me speaking at all of you. And joining me right now is Peter, my host and co-host. Welcome back, Peter. And we think Nestling is probably not showing up today. He is lab late, so he's probably not going to show up. But we'll soldier on in his absence. So,
We will.
okay. And hello, everybody watching the show. We got Icarus, we got Ron, we have Uprinder. Hello, welcome, everybody. We had a little bit of technical difficulty, which was caused by me, as it always is. Um, tends to be the case. So,
Well, in all fairness, it has been a few weeks, and it was just one button that wasn't hit. That was it.
yeah,
So
there's that enable live stream button always gets me every
I
single
have
time.
I have been known to forget to check that as well.
Yeah. Oh well.
It happens.
It'd be what it do. But we're here
Yes.
now. So, um, let's see. It's been a little while. I think the last live stream we did was the one of the photosynthesis evolution of photosynthesis shows that Nestling did for us. And fun fact, I actually get to teach photosynthesis next week for my
Oh,
Bio 1 for non-science majors class. So I get to curse them with that. And in that lecture, I really enjoy that lecture because I use it to talk about fossil fuels, because fossil fuels are the result of photosynthesis. And then the burning of fossil fuels leads to a whole conversation about um, global warming and climate change and people denying climate change. And it's a whole lot of fun, you know? So, yeah. Hello. So this week we are doing in the Bio 1 class, we did cellular respiration, which as a student, I hated cellular respiration. I also hated photosynthesis. I did not like either of them. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But then I had to learn it to teach it to students when I was a TA as a master's student. And now it makes perfect sense to me. It all makes perfect sense. Um, it's all beautifully complicated, but the reason for everything, like, it makes sense, right? And so today, or so I should say on Tuesday, for the cellular respiration one, we talked about the actual process itself. And today, Peter, I think you'll find this interesting. I explained to them how each step in cellular respiration evolved. So most of these steps evolved prior to the origin of cells. So like glycolysis, a lot of the steps in glycolysis can occur without biology being involved. They don't need enzymes. You just need organic molecules in a hydrothermal vent environment, and you can catalyze more reactions off of the metals that are found at hydrothermal vents. This catalyzes all sorts of interconversions among these different organic molecules, and you can get all sorts of cool stuff, including like ribose and deoxyribose, the constituents of DNA and RNA. And then the citric acid cycle, most of those molecules form without biology at all. They can form, like, we found them on meteorites and that kind of stuff. So clearly no enzymes were needed to make them. And then I got to talk about a very, very old subject on this channel. Peter, do you remember a long time ago on this channel, I put out a video on the evolution of ATP synthase? You remember that from way back in the day? It was like
that
8 years
that
ago.
yeah, that was a pretty long time ago.
Yeah, that was like 7, 8 years ago. Which, happy birthday to my channel, by the way. This channel has existed for 9 years. 9 years, Peter. That's how long we've
Mm-hmm.
been at this on this
Yes.
channel. Um,
Yes.
I love telling the story of how I started with this channel. When I first started at LSU Baton Rouge uh, in 2016, so I graduated in spring of 2016, started college fall, and while I was there, I got there about a week early. And so while I was there, I was taking it all in, having fun, going to bars, doing all sorts of stuff. And one of the things that happened was I was walking one day in front of the big building, the big central building on LSU's campus, which was called the Union, and they've got lots of restaurants and places for people to meet and stuff like that and have a good time in there, um, which is really neat. Um, but there is this area out front, this like sidewalk, and it was called Free Speech Alley. And basically, any group could come out and talk to students or yell at them, if it were the case. So sometimes you'd have like military recruiters out there. Sometimes you would have people being like, donate for this cause or that cause. And sometimes, of course, you would have the preachers with the signs draped over them that say like God hates gays and that sort of thing. Though they were all allowed. And I saw them all. I saw flat earthers, I saw creationists, all sorts of anti-vaxxers, all sorts of Looney Tunes out there. Well, when I first started, first couple days, I was walking to the Union, and there were these guys with like gold suits, and they had this red sash that went across. And I can't remember what the name of their group was. They were like a nationalist group. They were like a right wing nationalist group. And so they were handing out little pamphlets. They that were like the government should abolish like most social safety net programs like healthcare and regulations on businesses and things like this, because they're insane libertarians, of course. And
Basic,
one of the things,
basic pro-lifers, you mean?
yes, correct, basic pro-lifers.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw, but the current pope said that being pro-life is more than just about talking about abortion, which I thought was kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
Which is true. It is true. There's a very long tradition, and I'll circle back in a second, but there is a very long tradition in Christianity about arguing for social safety nets. In fact, I was literally just reading the Communist Manifesto. It's on my shelf offhand. And Marx talked about the overlap between Christian asceticism and socialism, because a lot of Christians, well, there used to be more of them, but talk about like giving up all of your private possessions, about having about redistributing wealth, right? And in fact, in the book The Big Myth by Naomi Oreskes and Eric Conway, they also have a whole chapter where they talk about how different churches were described as socialist or communist because they would take the money, whatever money they didn't need to pay their immediate bills, they would redistribute to the community. And that's socialism, don't you know? So,
well, there's this obscure guy in the Bible who may have said something along those lines. Not a lot of Christians know about him. His name was Jesus, I think.
Oh, is that what his name was?
Well, yeah.
He must have not been in very much of the book because no one seems to remember what he stood for.
No.
But but anyway, so I walk past these guys, and one of them is like standing right in front of me, and he just hands me a pamphlet, and I was just kind of like, whoa, okay. So I took the pamphlet and I started reading it, and I was kind of like, whoa, okay, this is kind of nuts. And then I flipped through it, and one of the things it says is that the government should not force the teaching of evolution in schools, and that, of course, stopped me in my tracks. I wasn't going to go argue with him about public policies or whatever, but it said that evolution shouldn't be taught. And then I was interested. I was like, okay. So I went back to the guy who handed it to me, and I said, hey, what do you mean by this? And he was like, oh, I don't think that evolution's true. And so the government shouldn't force us to learn about evolution. And so I asked him, like, well, why do you think that evolution's not true? And then we had like a 45-minute conversation in which he gave me like argument after argument after argument. And I'd heard a bunch of them up to that point, and I was able to debunk one after another. And after each instance in which he would give me an example, I would debunk it, and then I would, or then he would move on to another example. He would basically just say like, okay, well, forget that example. What about this thing? And then what about this thing? And then what about this thing? So after like 45 minutes of doing this, he finally finds an example of something I had never heard of before. And he was like, yes, I finally got you. That's why you need to watch a series called Evolutionless, which was the first series that we debunked on this channel, we started on it a long time ago. It was so boring that I stopped doing it after like 2 or 3 episodes, something like that. I just thought it was really boring. A printer says Marx would have called them primitive socialists or utopic socialists to differentiate them from so-called scientific socialism. Right. Nan says, yeah, but they're preaching prosperity gospel now.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, send me your money and I'll send you back $1 and then you send back more money. Mm-hmm. You know, that's how that works. Yeah.
And it works for the guy preaching it.
It does. You know, God said that they should have private jets, that they should live in multi-million-dollar mansions, you know? So, yeah, of course. So my roommate at the time suggested, so I told him about what had happened. My roommate suggested that I should start a YouTube channel and I should debunk this pamphlet. I should debunk the evolutionist series. And I took that to heart and I started doing it. And, you know, here we are 9 years later. I know I haven't put out a scripted video in like 3 months, but I have actually recorded most of the cauliflower's tail today. So we're getting there. I am going to put this video out, I hope, within the next week. But I've put it out a long time.
Every single time you bring it back to 9 years ago, I remember. So when I joined Twitter, there were a few people who have followed me. One of them is in chat, by the way, Ron DeVever. Hi, Ron. But one of my earliest followers was a woman from the United Kingdom called Sally. Mm-hmm. And she came into our DM group and said, I met this brilliant young whippersnapper you all need to meet. His name is Jackson Wheat. You need to go look him up and invite him over. And that's how everything got started, I think. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah. That was...
good old Sally.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago. It feels like it was just yesterday. Uh-oh. Oh, there it goes. It feels like it was just yesterday. Yes. 9 years ago.
Yes.
And a large part
things haven't changed. They've got worse, Jackson. What are we doing?
Yeah, they haven't progressed. They have regressed, I would say.
Yes.
The funny thing is a large part of the reason I haven't put out a video is I teach classes now. You know, back when this channel first started, I was literally in my first semester of college. I now have my master's degree and I teach classes. And teaching classes takes a lot of time and effort. I have to write lectures. My wife also writes lectures. She teaches way more classes than I do. I mostly work at an aquarium, but I teach on the side. But she teaches her full-time job, and so she spends way more time doing all that than I do. And so, like, it takes time to write these things. And writing a lecture is a lot like writing a script for a YouTube video. And so it takes a lot out of me. And so then I don't have as much time to work on YouTube stuff. And then even when I do have time to work on it, some of my interests have kind of changed a little bit. So we are going to finish the Ancestor's Tale eventually. But I've also picked up an interest in like history more recently. And so it's a terrible time to pick up an interest in history, by the way. A lot of parallels with the 1920s and 30s going on right now. Not very fun at all. So yeah, terrible time to pick up history.
Well, so, and going off of history, Icarus replied to you an earlier comment of yours, and he said, I don't believe math is true. We should stop teaching math in schools. And so that led me back into my history, because I once discovered this video that was made 14 years ago. It has 2.9 million views by now. And that is Miss USA 2011 Should math be taught in schools? If you have not seen this, this is a parody on whether or not evolution should be taught. It is one of the most brilliant videos I've ever seen, and I put a link in the chat, so when we're done, go watch that. You will not regret it. Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Nan says, things are not entirely regressed. Some organization on both sides happened. The side with bullcrap just has more money on their side. I don't even know if that's necessarily true. Kamala made more in terms of her funding than I think like any candidate ever has, if I remember correctly. They have an enormous ability to lie to people, to propagandize in a way that is effective, and I think that the opposition party is extremely ineffective. And that's very saddening.
I think what Nan's referring to is, for instance, the Koch brothers, who spent millions on trying to mess with the educational system.
Right, like PragerU and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
But I think I'm not even necessarily sure that I don't know if I would say Trump's cabinet, though, is the wealthiest cabinet in U.S. history, only superseding his last cabinet, which was previously the wealthiest cabinet in U.S. history, which is kind of funny. But I don't know. I think the issue is more the right is more effective at messaging, which I think is terrible because their messages are awful. But I think most of the opposition party is rather spineless and doesn't stand for much of anything and is caved on a bunch of really important issues, and that's also quite sad. But anyway, okay. Philosophy, a game channel, a history nerd. We'd love to talk to you sometime. Yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk history. Absolutely. Prender says, I see a lot of parallels with the era of robber barons, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, with all these billionaires hoarding so much wealth. Yes, absolutely. I 100% agree. The book that got me into history is over on my shelf right here. 1177 BC, the year civilization collapsed, which is about the Bronze Age collapse. And if you guys watched the conversation that we had with Andrea Jones-Roy, we actually talked about this book because he has a chapter on complexity theory, which is a thing she studies. And we talked about that kind of later in the chat. And since then, I've read The Big Myth by Naomi Oreskes and Eric Conway, which highly, highly, highly recommend. Very, very good book. It's on the economic history of the U.S., specifically with regard to libertarianism. So it looks at deregulation versus regulation of different industries over the last like 110, 20 years. And it's really, really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I never thought I would read like a 400-page book on U.S. economic history, but here we are. It's very, very well done. And by the way, they wrote another book prior to that, which is titled Merchants of Doubt, in which they talk about different industries that fund pseudoscience, like cigarettes, like the whole cigarette or smoking doesn't cause cancer, the hole in the ozone layer is fake, climate change is fake, all that sort of stuff. So they wrote this book cataloging these examples through the last like 60, 70 years. Very good book also. I just learned in the video I came from that apparently some people, for some reason, are attracted to malignant narcissists. Mm-hmm. That's true. That is very sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's another? Oh, right now I'm reading a book, actually. This one, America, which is about the history of the U.S. or sorry, the English and the Spanish in the New World. Very, very good. It starts with the Spanish in the New World over the first over the 1400s, or so the end of the 1400s. So 1492, is when Columbus first came over and went back to Spain and brought news of the New World. And so through the 1500s, the Spanish conquered much of the New World. They enslaved Native Americans, wiped them out, that sort of thing. At the same time that they were doing that, the English were looking at the Spanish conquering the New World and said, hey, what if we did that to the Irish? And so they did. And so the English conquered the Irish. And then in the early 1600s, the English first started making their way to the New World. And when they arrived, or by the time they arrived, most of the Native Americans had already been wiped out by disease and famine and war and all sorts of other things. And so the English just kind of showed up and went, look at all this land God has left for us. Isn't he just a benevolent God?
And they built the airfields, the famous airfields. That was
yeah, the airfields. That's right.
Yes, they brought airplanes back then.
Thank you, Trump. That's so.
I remember the president of the United States talking about those.
What's so funny, and I'll circle back to the book in a second, is before Trump, people would like focus on specific things that like Obama said or Bush said or Clinton said, right? There used to be like people would do like little compilations of like funny little things that the president said. Like one time Obama misspoke and said 60 states. People had a good laugh at that. It's true. It's a little funny. Bush said like, I believe that the fish and the people can coexist peacefully. That's kind of funny. So like people would record these things and because they'd be like, okay, well, once or twice someone would misspeak. It would happen. You give speeches all the time, you misspeak. It's impossible to do that with Trump because everything he says is insane.
You would have a 24/7 live stream to do that.
Yes, like you can't like collate everything that he says into a video because he's just a fire hose of absolute nonsense. His statements are incoherent. They're normally racist or egocentric. I mean, almost everything he says is wrong. He has told thousands of lies in his tenure as president. It's terrible. Every single sentence. Yeah, remember when people said, "Thanks, Obama, I have a book of Bushisms"? Yeah, exactly. So people used to collect these things because we were like, haha, it's funny that sometimes they misspeak. Sometimes they say things that are wrong, but Trump says everything wrong. Yeah. So you can't just pick statements. I mean, like the most you can do is pick like the most egregious things out, right?
Here's an idea. You could make small clips of whenever he says something that is right, like it's raining. True. It's raining, or hello, something like that.
We could play the game that Dapper does, drink when he says something correct without reading it, you'd probably never get drunk if we did that. I mean, like, you can remember specific things like stand back and stand by, which he said, regarding the Proud Boys, or there are fine people on both sides regarding the, I think it was the Charlottesville riot. But like, aside from that, like there are lots of other things that he just says all the time. Yeah, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. Yeah. Exactly. Anyway, okay. And then I've read a number of other ones. Oh, I just finished this one actually. All the Shah's Men, which is about the history of Iran. It's about the history of Iran by Stephen Kinzer. And the book focuses very heavily on U.S., English, and Iranian foreign policies. And so the book spends a large amount of time talking about how the U.S. abetted the overthrow of the democratic Iranian government. So they elected this guy named Mohammad Mossadegh. I probably mispronounced that, but my apologies. And Mohammad Mossadegh said the money that the British are, or the income that Persians or Iranians are receiving from the British by working at the Abadan oil refinery is extremely low. They are basically not sharing any of the profits with the workers or with Iran. And so Mossadegh, in response to this, said, "We are going to nationalize the oil company. We are going to bring it under Iran." And then the British got mad. Now, what's funny about this is the Iranians had said, "Hey, we will share the profits with you." Like America was sharing profits with, I believe it was Saudi Arabia, 50-50. And so Iran said, "Hey, British, just share 50-50 with us and we'll call it good." And Britain said, "Get bent, we're not doing that."
Mm-hmm.
And so Mossadegh nationalized the oil company. And then under Eisenhower and Churchill, because Churchill got reelected after Clement Attlee, after his administration, and Eisenhower got elected after Truman, they decided together, Churchill basically hatched a plan, and it was carried out by the Foster brothers and the CIA to overthrow Iran. Now, why did I read this book? Well, I decided to read it because we were rattling our saber at Iran, including dropping missiles on Iran, which we did, which didn't really have any effect on their capacity for nuclear armament. Do you know what did have a significant effect on their capacity for nuclear armament? The Iran deal made under Obama that Trump pulled out of in his first term. That was actually a program that, now you can criticize it, of course, but that was an actual program that we had in place that helped us monitor Iran's nuclear armament. And then you can say like, "Hey, it wasn't strong enough," or whatever. Okay, that's fine. But we have no deal now. There's no deal. Trump never replaced it with anything. Okay, nothing at all. So I think that was the worst option. I think it's better to have some kind of regulation than no regulation whatsoever. I'm not getting the other books on my shelf. The War on Science by Sean Otto, not the one by Lawrence Krauss, is also very good. Highly, highly recommend it. Sean, the channel Sean, not related to Sean Otto, a different Sean, made a video this past week, or released a video this past week, in which he talked about the new Lawrence Krauss War on Science book. And I have to say, it's very sad how far Lawrence Krauss has fallen. Mm-hmm. For a guy who I've read A Universe from Nothing. I think it's really good. I like it a lot. I have another book of his on my shelf. It's The Physics of Climate Change. I used to watch a lot of Lawrence Krauss stuff, and so it's very sad to me that he is now in bed with just the worst people. Crazy libertarians, racists. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. People who were like one of the people who wrote in the book was like the personal relations for an opioid company. One woman was like this crazy racist. There were a bunch of people who were connected with like these terrible white nationalist groups. Like it's not great. And then of course you have other people, you have like Richard Dawkins and Jerry Coyne in there too, which also very disappointing, but what have you, I guess. Yes, it is. As a printer says, it is just Sabina Hassenfelder and Weinstein Brothers talking points. It is, because this book came out this year. Like, I think it was like January or February, something like that. And the book says that the biggest problem in science right now is woke.
Of course.
It's not the fact that RFK and Trump are defunding science organizations left and right. It's the woke. Don't you know? It is the fact that like they argue that DEI, so like women in science and brown people in science are bad. They argue that like cancel culture is the real problem, and they tell these lies essentially about people who were banned from academia because they harassed women or students. And the way they frame their stories, of course, is like they were standing up for free speech. No, they weren't. They were sexually harassing students. What do you mean? Or being racist or what have you. And now, of course, the conservatives don't believe in free speech anyway, of course, because they are actively backing the firing of anyone who made fun of Charlie Kirk, which nobody should die for their free speech, obviously. And also, you shouldn't get fired for making jokes about people. Like, what are we doing here? This was the party, the political group that literally, like, they're all arguing about cancel culture one minute, and then they're doing the largest, most sustained cancel culture I've ever seen the next minute. That's crazy. I can't fathom being that blinkered to what you're doing,
I mean,
I don't know what you think, Peter.
Honesty isn't one of the traits that gets enough attention these days. It's insane how many people you once respected and have gone insane. And in the chat, Goth Shorty adds to that Dawkins.
We can talk about him right now. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I mean, a few years back, he was someone that I admired, that doing his work and giving talks, and he turned into a very terrible person.
Yeah, I've read 7 Dawkins books. 7. You are hard pressed to find a person who has read more Dawkins books than I have.
You've done an entire series on his last book.
We're literally doing it like 5-year series on one book. And I can't stand him. I unfollowed him on Twitter because I don't want to see his posts. I'm so disturbed by the things that he says. Like I read, read The Ancestor's Tale, for instance, not just because it's one of my favorite books, which it is, but if you read it, one of the things that Dawkins goes out of his way to do is to break down the concept of races, which we also did in a video, The Grasshopper's Tale. Races are not real, right? They're a human construct. Mm-hmm. We invented them to classify each other. They're not biologically real things. And the whole point of Dawkins writing, not just in The Grasshopper's Tale, but also in The Tasmanian's Tale, is this discussion of genetic variation, talking about genetic variation and talking about crossing between lineages. And so it makes no sense to me that a guy who spent his entire career talking about genetic variation in different populations of organisms would suddenly turn around and say there has never been variation at all from male and female sexes.
Yeah.
Like, what? What are we talking about? And it's not like he does not cite literature. He doesn't cite medical literature, which he could. He certainly knows how to. Mm-hmm. He doesn't cite it. He only talks about the blue-haired college students and why they're bad for science or whatever. But he doesn't ever cite any literature, except to say like, oh, well, the prevalence of this is so small. Okay, it might be small. That's very true. But just because it's true that there is a small percentage of people who are not exactly like in all of their categories, one or the other, that doesn't make them go away.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make any sense to me that he acts like that, because I guarantee in any other context, he wouldn't have this kind of argumentation. If you were to ask him about like people are always either, white or non-white, he would go out of his way to cite study after study after study that shows these are perfect, perfectly gradated, categories, right? They meld perfectly into each other. So there's this huge amount of variation. Or the origin of life, right? When is something alive versus when it isn't? he would go out of his way. In fact, he does have a chapter in Origin of Species, in the Ancestor's Tale, where he talks about the origin of life, and he discusses a study that was done using RNA, and these RNA molecules that are under natural selection to become better at copying themselves. And so, like, are those alive? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on your definition. But like when we talk about things, whether something is alive or not, we have a range, right? Some things are more alive than others. Some things are definitely not alive. Some things are kind of in the middle, right? So it's always a talk about variation until we get to the discussion of sexes, and then there's no variation whatsoever. Everything's one or the other. There's no deviation ever, and that's just so dishonest and frustrating. I don't know, Peter. What do you think?
And it's not that it's a new thing. I mean, we've known about this for a very, very, very long time, and the fact that those people seem to have completely phased that out and are arguing against all of this, I don't get it, and I don't get what they get out of it.
Yeah, I don't either. And you're right. There are, I think, is it the Sambia people of New Guinea, who, yes, yeah, the Sambia, which are the Sambari people. So the Sambari people of Papua New Guinea, yes, they have ritualized homosexuality. Yeah, they also they have this whole thing about people who are not quite male or female. And the way that they categorize these people is they talk about people being born as either female and then transitioning to male later in life, or the reverse. And the reason they do this is there is an androgen insensitivity mutation that occurs in this population. And so because it's so small, there's a founder effect problem where if you're a small population and you have a mutation, there's a much higher likelihood of that mutation going to fixation, which is what can happen. So like one population goes to like an island or something, and whereas that one mutation maybe comprised like 0.5% of the original population, now a substantial number of the individuals in this new population have that. And so within this population, the Sambari people, sorry, they have this androgen insensitivity issue. So what that means is before they hit puberty, the males are often underdeveloped. So they have sexual organs that look more like females' organs. And then it's only when they hit puberty, they have a very large amount of testosterone that triggers their more kind of normal male development. So in that culture, they have this idea of people being more like girls when they're first born and then becoming males later.
Okay.
So that's very interesting, and I actually talk about that in one of my classes. Smitty says Richard Dawkins. Wait, where was it? Hold on. Oh, Richard Dawkins says make up a tiny fraction of the population. Why should we pay any attention to them? Very true. Talking about sexes is sort of a side tangent in the first place where the subject is gender. Yes, that's true. But also, that's another case, Smitty, you're very right. But they ignore the fact that Dawkins, Coyne, Krauss, etc., ignore that there's a difference between sex and gender. They pretend like, one, these are the same things when they know better, I think. I think they know better. And they act like that's consensus, which it isn't. Like, it's so frustrating to see that they act like the actual physical makeup of your body, your chromosomes, your sex characteristics, etc., is the same as the cultural role that you play. Like, that's so frustrating. That's so dishonest. You have to know better. As a biologist, you have to know better. Yes, I agree. Let's see. Richard Dawkins presumably still goes around saying trans people believe their chromosomes are opposite. Yeah, that was also an insane thing. I never understood that. Like, nobody says that. That's ridiculous. Yeah, I thought that was silly. So anyway, it does frustrate me that these men who I held to a very high esteem. I've also read Jerry Coyne's books. I've read both the fact Why Evolution is True. There we go. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Why Evolution is True and Fact versus Fiction, which is his book about atheism. I've read those. I thought they were fine. Like I said, I've read Krauss. I've read lots of Dawkins. So it's like, I hate that these guys who I respected all became such Looney Tunes. I am still happy, of course, that, like, you know, we still have PZ, we still have Aaron, we have these guys who did not become Looney Tunes. They're still great science communicators, and they're also allies for the LGBT. So very happy about that. I actually was, you know, Peter, I was thinking about PZ just this week, and I sent him an email. He didn't respond to me, but that's okay. In one of the lectures I'm working on for one of my classes, I was reminded, maybe you remember this, about a professor at San Diego University compared a fetus to a tumor. So she has a slide up on the screen, and she compares embryogenesis, so the process of embryo formation, to tumorigenesis, the process of tumor formation. Now, she points this out on a slide, and one of the students in the audience takes a picture and posted it to Twitter. Actually, well, he sent it to a friend. The friend posted it to Twitter and sent that slide to Fox News, who ran a story on it in which they called out the professor for comparing embryos to tumors. They got a pro-life person to come on and say, this is so damaging to the way that people think about babies. Now, what's funny about all of this is it has been well known since the 1990s that there are lots of similarities between how embryos form and implant in the endometrium of the mother, as well as there are lots of similarities between this process and the process of tumor formation. Because in both cases, there is a transition from certain cell types activating the wrong, or a certain set of genes. In the case of the embryo, it's the correct set of genes. But in the case of the tumor, it's the wrong set. So these same processes get activated in these different environments. And in one case, it's a very good result, right? The embryo implants and goes about its normal reproductive cycle. But for the tumor, the cells turn on the wrong thing and they can metastasize. So for 20 plus years now, we've known about these similarities, and the doctor, the professor, was simply relaying a little bit of this information to the students. And one of the students was dumb enough to think that she was making a stance on the pro-life, pro-choice, pro-life debate. Isn't that dumb?
What I don't get is how these people at Fox News got an entire story from a picture. Where did the whole context they thought they were talking about come from? Or was something more posted than just a picture? This is the problem with news today. They see something, they do not check the backstory or anything else regarding something they see or hear, and just make news about it. Which is which can be completely 100% wrong. Earlier today, I met my friend who is a Syrian refugee, and he said, I saw a very disturbing video on. He still watches Arab TV every once in a while, and it seemed that there was this German general who at some point was in NATO as well, and he had some things to say about the Russian-Ukrainian war. and that the things that we were told were all lies. And so I hadn't heard of this guy. So all I did is I said, well, let's see who this guy is. So I typed in his name in Google, and a Wikipedia page came up. And guess what? This guy has been under fire in Germany for a very, very, very long time, spouting complete and utter nonsense. This guy is pro Putin. He thinks that yes, the war should be ended, but it should be ended by just giving Ukraine to the Russians.
Right.
Because
of course.
because thousands of years ago, that was part of Russia. Yeah. And I told him, well, great. A long time ago, Belgium was a part of the Netherlands. Should we now go and invade Belgium? And that's when no. I said, see? One of the simplest arguments that you can have. But yeah, this guy apparently is making the rounds on Arab TV, on several channels, spouting nonsense about the Russian-Ukrainian war and what we should do about it.
Yeah, I had an argument with someone who made that exact same argument, and I was deeply disappointed by the person who did it. This person said, that like, oh, well, Ukraine, has only existed for like 30 years. So it doesn't get to be, it can't just be its own thing. And I said, could you imagine saying that to an American colonist in the late 1700s? And they kind of went, oh,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, because this was an American person I was talking to. So like, yeah, like, oh, well, the 13 colonies, they can't be their own country. They're literally colonies of the United Kingdom, So.
Should we tell the Israelis? I mean,
right? Yeah, they also do that same sort of thing. Yeah,
that's also not a very old country. Remember that was a country that was established last century. So maybe we should give it back to the Palestinians.
Uh-oh, careful, Peter. We're gonna get demonetized.
I'm just saying, if people can make arguments, but then there are things they're forgetting.
Well, you're right. And also, I mean, what you have to remember at the background of this argument is that countries are not real. We made up the concept of countries. We made up the concept of borders. Yes. Now, does that mean that they're not important and that they don't have actual impacts on the world? No, of course not. Try to cross into another country without a passport, you'll get arrested. That's not what I mean.
No.
What I mean is
no. What
do you mean no?
First of all, I can cross the border in my backyard. All I have to do is go outside. But I can also cross the border in the street, just right behind the house. I don't need a passport. I don't need anything. I can cross the border.
I can't do that here in the
US.
I
can cross the border at 120 or 130 kilometers an hour, depending on the time of day. Just buzzing into another country. I don't need a passport. All I need is my identity card. That works fine in Germany too.
I think you know what I'm referring to. You know that here in the U.S., if I try to go down to Mexico, for instance, I'm going to get stopped at the border.
Yeah.
Or if I try to go to Canada, same way. But I did also want to read my unfinished song, Hail Jax and Peter and Hail Science that transcends scientists. Very true. But yeah, I mean, countries, right, these are inventions that we devised to categorize ourselves and stuff. And so when people make arguments like, well, my country's been around for 100 years or it's been around for 40 years or whatever, like, this doesn't mean anything. Countries rise and fall all the time. This doesn't mean anything. Icarus says, what do you mean countries aren't real? Next, you say that species aren't real either. Sapphire Equatorial Poles Light says, once upon a time, we could do that in North America. Yeah. I mean, that's what happened, right? Europeans came over and they said, "This land is mine. This land is my land. It's not your land, actually, contrary to the song."
Yeah.
And they divided it up in particular ways.
I can't help myself, but every single time someone is talking about borders, I just learn a new joke. And so, did you know what borders on stupidity, Jackson?
What?
Canada and Mexico.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you know what my favorite joke is? One of my favorite jokes about my country, Peter. What do you call someone who speaks 2 languages?
A bilinguist.
Right. What do you call someone who speaks 3 languages?
Bilinguist?
What do you call someone who speaks only 1 language?
American.
American. Yep, exactly right.
I made that meme, I think 8 or 9 years ago, for a guy that I no longer am in contact with, but a guy that I love, because he wasn't a comedian, but he could have been, and he was from Louisiana. And so he asked me to make that meme for him. It's one of the earliest memes I've ever done. And every once in a while, I still see it popping up on Twitter and Blue Sky and think, hey,
that's awesome.
I made that. Yeah, that is cool.
Awesome. I think actually Icarus makes a good point. Wrong. Americans speak on average 0.7 languages. That's true. I did see I saw a meme this week that did tickle me. It said Canada. It said, "I don't like Canada because half the people speak French and the other half let them." That I thought that was very funny. Omar Zek says, "I used to travel from the U.S. into Canada without a passport in the '80s. That's really cool." I would say good luck trying that nowadays. But the point with that was, the whole concept of trying to say like, well, people lived here, in the past, so it's mine, is kind of ridiculous. Personally, I'm all for abolishing. Let's abolish countries. Let's all just be one single society. That's what I would say. And I say that half jokingly, maybe.
Well, and I think the world might be better off if it was just one single country. We would have less wars. We would have less problems.
Maybe, I don't know.
And we would have better diversity, because then people could travel wherever they wanted without any limits.
That's true. I say that kind of half jokingly. I'm not entirely sure how that would work, and it probably wouldn't ever work, really. I mean, I doubt we would have to. A lot would have to change about the world.
Humanity's far from getting to the point to be able to make that work.
Exactly. But I have been thinking about that since I read 2 books by Aviva Chomsky, who is the daughter of Noam Chomsky. I've got a bunch of his books up there. You can kind of see him. I love Noam Chomsky. He's another guy who, much like Jane Goodall passed this week. I fully expect to hear a rest in peace Noam Chomsky within anytime soon. He's like 96 or 7, something like that, and he had a stroke recently. So, but Aviva Chomsky wrote a couple of books about immigration in the U.S. They're titled one is titled 20 Myths About Immigration, it's titled They Take Our Jobs, and 20 Other Myths About Immigration. And then the other one is titled Undocumented, A History of Immigration. And they are both focusing on Central and South American immigration into the U.S., right? Because that's predominantly what we deal with here in the U.S. And those books were phenomenal. They're very, very good in terms of like debunking misconceptions about immigration, and really kind of sad in the way that they talk about like the humanitarian crisis that is our southern border. It just is a humanitarian crisis. and it has been for decades, and it's very, very sad. Um, last I heard from Noam Chomsky was telling people to none of their business why he was with Jeffrey Epstein. That's possible. Oh, speaking of Epstein, he's in a picture with like Dawkins and Daniel Dennett and Steven Pinker. They're like all together. Or no, sorry, it wasn't Epstein. It was Ghislaine Maxwell. That's who it was. She's like sitting with Dennett, Dawkins, Pinker. And also, Epstein was very close friends with Lawrence Krauss. They were friends for quite a long time, which is another thing that Nestling, you mentioned the Sean video. Yes, the Sean video does talk about how Krauss and Epstein were friends. I have read books, forgot the author's name. He makes the observation that borders were first enacted to keep subjects inside. I don't know. I mean, the Chomsky kind of talks about that in is that it up there? I think that's this one right here is I forgot the title. The title of that book is Understanding Power. There we go. That's the book is basically he talks about a lot of different subjects, but one of the things he discusses is he kind of gives an overview of the history of the concept of countries. Aviva Chomsky also does that in Undocumented. She talks about how the concept of countries as we understand them now kind of came about, and the concept of races, how it's tied to countries and nationality. And also, there's a section in this book that also talks about that, because part of being a Spaniard, for instance, was inherently being a Christian. You had to be a Christian to be a Spaniard, specifically a Catholic. You couldn't be a Spaniard and be a Muslim or a Jew, for instance. And so
the Dutch know all about that.
Yeah.
80 years.
Speak another language, parcel tongue.
80 years we've been at war with the Spanish. 80 years.
Oh?
Yes.
Really? Mm-hmm. Over what?
Over who I think it was who read the Bible best. So the Dutch had a Protestant king, I think, and obviously the Spanish were Catholic. I think that was one of the things. I'm not sure, but
okay.
The history of my country is one of my blind spots.
Gotcha. The book is really interesting. It spends a lot of time talking about how the Spanish dealt with the concepts of like enslaving Native Americans and things like that, because they kind of wrestled with it. The conquistadors on one hand were like, yeah, it's fine, we can do it. But back at home, the clergy were very much opposed to it. So anyway, okay. All right, Peter. We ready to watch these videos?
we have about an hour left.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's watch some climate change denialism.
Okay, let's see what we can do.
We are in the beginning.
No, not her. The other one.
Deadly winters.
Oh dear.
Contrary to popular belief, far more people die from cold than heat.
You can't hear the video, Jackson?
I couldn't hear it, no.
Oh, hold on. There has been a Windows update, so it probably whacked my
Don't worry, I'll just read his lips if he if we can't hear him, you know. I'll do my interpretive lip reading. Smitty says he can hear it.
Yeah, the stream can hear it.
Okay.
I'm sure about that, but it obviously would be nice if you can hear it too. So let me enable filters on both. Okay. Both. Let's see. How about now?
Of a mass extinction.
Wrong one.
Saving lives from the danger of cold requires low-cost, reliable energy. Without it, people on the margins can't adequately heat their homes during the harsh winter months. Even in wealthy Europe, literally thousands will die for lack of energy. Widespread job losses. When energy prices increase dramatically, industries scale back or shut down altogether. As the Wall Street Journal reports, Europe's energy crisis has left few businesses untouched. Some industries, such as the energy-intensive metals sector, are shutting factories that analysts and executives say might never reopen, imperiling thousands of jobs. Mass starvation. Modern agriculture depends on fossil fuels. Natural gas is a prime component of fertilizer, and farming equipment is largely powered by diesel fuel. When natural gas and oil prices go up, food becomes...
So remember, okay, I think this is the guy who wrote a book that was called like The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels or something like that. The idea is we must burn fossil fuels because they're cheap, is the argument. I think that's a terrible argument. I mean, so one thing he keeps saying cheap energy, right? The problem with this is one thing he's kind of neglecting to mention is that we subsidize to a large extent the fossil fuel industry, right? We pour lots of tax dollars into it. The government pours lots of tax dollars into it, which is not necessarily a bad thing. That can help open up. So for instance, in a vacuum, right? Assuming that like, if we pretended that there were no climate change problems associated with fossil fuels, opening up new lines of drilling in the U.S. would make us more energy independent, which means that the prices of these things would fluctuate less in theory, given that if there were shocks like across overseas, for instance, like a major oil producing company getting invaded, for instance, right? So the idea is if we had our own gas lines and oil wells and stuff, then that's fine, because we'd be more energy independent. We'd be less open to getting struck by shocks. Well, okay. The thing is, this is adding on to climate change, right? So this is contributing to climate change, okay? And we have other means by which we can produce electricity. Namely, we have nuclear, which is a thing that exists. I don't know if he's going to get into it. But one thing that people like this tend to point out is that renewable energy is less fuel efficient. Well, actually, I don't even know if that's true necessarily. I think it actually is. Well, okay, it's more. Most renewable energy sources are more fuel efficient than coal, I believe. I think the others are kind of around the same in terms of fuel efficiency. But nuclear is very fuel efficient, right? So the amount of energy that can theoretically be produced by nuclear energy is very close to the actual amount that gets put out. So nuclear energy is good. We want to substitute. Nuclear exists. There must be a new development. Correct. Also, Smitty points out you can't base your economy on cheap energy that's running out. Yeah. It's also not renewable and heavily subsidized. It works as a transition option. Yeah, sure. Ultimately, it would be great if we could do renewable energy for everything, right? The problem is, right now, we need to put more work into that. We need to put more scientific effort into these renewable sources of energy. We need to move away from, and I don't mean biomass, burning like biodiesel, ethanol, this sort of stuff is not like really much better than just burning gas and oil, right? And the reason is the products, fossil fuels are the products of photosynthesis, ultimately. Biomass that we burn is also the product of photosynthesis. you're still burning lots and lots of carbon, putting lots of carbon into the atmosphere. So biomass is not a really helping. But nuclear, yes, would be a good transition. So we move away from these fossil fuels that are putting lots of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, as well as other things like methane and other like nitrous oxides and things like this. And if we can move away from that, we can use nuclear. And the idea is, in theory, we can move towards renewable ultimately. Part of the problem ultimately is the consumption. The very concept of consumption in general is going to require a major rethink. And that's a very scary prospect. The idea that for people, we won't people won't be able to like drive their car wherever they want to go, right? People won't all be able to eat, an infinite amount of food, right? The concept of consumption will need a rethink. How much land we use, how much water we use, all that sort of stuff, which it is scary for a lot of people, and it's a complex subject, right? It will require major reworkings of a lot of aspects of our society. It will require more equitably distributing resources, right? Not just hoarding certain resources for certain people. And we're not going to solve that overnight. It's going to take a long time it's going to take time to figure out. People don't like change. That's true, Nan. A lot of people don't like change. But that's something that if we want to live on a
and people don't like things that they're not acquainted with. So if there's a new form of energy, look at what's happening now with electric cars. People don't know much about electric cars. A lot of people are scared to buy electric cars because they don't know what will happen with those cars in, let's say, a couple of years. What are the problems that are going to pop up? If you have a car that runs on fossil fuel, you know the things that will need replacement after so many miles. So all of that is a thing.
Right.
But
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we do make progress all the time. And so I recently sold all of my power tools and I switched to battery operated tools instead, which was something that I couldn't have done a few years ago because you would never get the power that you need. But they're making such enormous progress, especially in the last few years. And we see the same thing with electric cars. They have better mileage, and it's getting better and better basically every year. So I don't think it's something that we can stop. And we already have electric trucks. So why couldn't we have electric machinery in agriculture? It's just it's a matter of time.
There's no reason
we will
not to.
have that. Yes, and then we can see the progress that is being made in solar power.
Which the U.S. is not going to be a part of because we hate solar and wind for whatever reason.
Well, I mean, yes, you have a president that said, if you put up solar panels, it's going to take away the sun for a lot of people, and we won't have the heat from the sun because everything is consumed by the solar power, the solar panels.
Do you remember when Trump said that windmills cause cancer? You remember that?
Yes, and windmills.
That was dumb.
And windmills would cause the effect you wouldn't have wind anymore. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Dutch, but We've been working with windmills for a while now, and we still have wind, and we have less wind.
No, Peter, don't you know that the turbine itself sucks up all the air? That's how that works, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to remember, I live in a country where just a couple of years ago, conservatives were saying that weather machines were used by the government to create hurricanes to attack red states so that it would kill or hinder voters, I guess. Sorry for the rest of the world that we exist. I apologize for, the U.S. and shenanigans. Yes, Gillian, Equatorial South Pole. Ren says, I know Cybertrucks are really ugly. They are. They look like 4-year-olds' first attempt at drawing a car.
They're very, very, very unsafe. Because
Smitty says, ugliest carrot cutter on the market. Do you know what that's in reference to?
No.
So these guys were testing out the Cybertruck.
Oh.
And they closed the door and it cut a carrot.
Yes, I have
Which
seen...
would be someone's finger.
Yeah, I have seen several videos of people who actually tried that out with their own fingers, which is hilarious. There's lots of videos of that on YouTube, and once you start watching those, you just can't stop watching.
Because that's terrible.
People are stupid. Yes.
Did they lose their finger?
Not so. The videos that I saw, they didn't lose their finger, but they got extremely hurt in the process, which is a lot of fun to watch. I mean, if you're stupid enough to try that out, and you try it out because you saw a warning about it, not to do it, then I'm all for it. If you still want to try that out, you try that out. Make sure you have a video of that and post that on YouTube for me to watch, because sorry. I like watching
Sapphire
people like that.
Polls Light says, remember when Trump said Tylenol causes autism? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I unfortunately do. I watched the press conference and that was dumb. It's the thing that never stops being funny to me is RFK is a guy who has taken heroin for decades and has the audacity to tell the rest of us that vaccines are bad for you.
Yeah.
There's just something wrong there.
Yeah. If you take your grandchildren and to go bathing in sewage, you shouldn't be anywhere near a health department.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, he's wacky. Okay. All right, let's keep going.
It's more expensive around the world. According to the president of the World Farmers Organization, prices are 78% higher than in 2021. In many regions in the developing world, farmers simply can't afford fertilizers, or even if they could, the fertilizers are not available to them. Not enough fertilizer means not enough food. While the whole world suffers from an energy crisis, the worst affected are poor nations.
Hold on a second. Wait a second. Wait. Is he saying the fertilizer is not available explicitly because of high energy prices? Is that what that means?
So,
Peter, could you back up for? Would you be able to back up for me? He cited an article. Could you back up so I could see what the title of that article was? I apologize.
Let me see. I should be. Hold on.
Nations who are getting outbid for scarce energy supplies.
Nope.
No, it didn't go backwards.
No. I did this earlier today, and for some reason, it doesn't work anymore. Okay. Do it manually. Let's see.
Not enough fertilizer means not enough food. While the whole world...
Well, it didn't go back far enough, but I think I found something. Global shocks to fertilizer markets. This is from this year. Impacts on prices, demand, and farm profitability. It says supply chain disruptions caused major spikes in fertilizer prices during 2021 to 2022. I think that's what they were talking about. Globally, the price shocks only had a muted impact on fertilizer usage. On average, profitability for commercial crop producers was affected only mildly. Farmer profitability in low-income Africa was affected more severely. Low usage in African makes African smallholders less vulnerable to fertilizer supply shocks. Okay. During 2021 to 2022, spiking fertilizer prices raised fears that fertilizer applications would drop around the world, leading to lower crop production, higher food prices, and greater food insecurity. Even writing mid-2024, a paucity of data impedes a full assessment of how the underlying global market shocks may have affected farmers and food production around the world. Using proxy indicators for fertilizer demand and farm profitability, we find that despite the steep increase in input costs, global demand for fertilizer fell only modestly during the 2022 to 2023 crop cycle, suggesting many commercial farmers were able and willing to absorb increased input costs in the context of generally good harvest prospects and, at the time, high crop prices. Okay, hold on. We also found that fertilizer price spikes have not been felt equally, with many farmers in Africa estimated to have been affected more adversely, even though with varied impacts among those farmers. Okay, during 2021 and 2022, global food and fertilizer prices spiked due to several overlapping factors. Demand rose as the world economy emerged from the COVID-19 recession. Global supply chains suffered major disruptions associated with the uneven recovery, and the outbreak of the war between Russia and Ukraine, both a key food and fertilizer producer, generated yet another shock. More recently, the Israel-Hamas war and added tensions in the Middle East region have led to shipment bottlenecks in the Red Sea area, stoking fears of renewed price spikes. Clearly, global agricultural markets are in an extended period of unpredictability and volatility. To better understand the possible impacts of future shocks on prices, agricultural production, Okay. So the fertilizer price rose because of uneven access to the sales of fertilizer, right? They could not ship them, so the supply was down, and therefore the demand was up. This wasn't because of oil, though. This wasn't because of fossil fuels.
No.
At least it doesn't seem like it was because of fossil fuels. It seems like it was because that the supply was down, caused by the COVID-19 recession. So
and the war with Ukraine.
Right.
Yeah. So nothing to do with fossil fuels whatsoever.
Let's see. Yeah, burning fossil fuels waste hydrocarbons that can be used for petrochemical fertilizer. Fibonacci single-celled trilobites ADA predicting Trojan source. Well, it does look like that is the case. It looks like it's not because of spiking prices of fossil fuels. It was because the supply was diminished because of the war and also because of the recession. And so, like, ships were not traveling back and forth. So yes, it does seem like he is relying on incorrect information.
Gregor, you
okay?
Relying on incorrect information, you say? That can't be.
I know, it's so crazy how that happens. Okay, all right, we can keep going.
Suffers from an energy crisis. The worst affected are poor nations who are getting outbid for scarce energy supplies. Bangladesh has recently experienced widespread power outages. They simply can't get the energy they need. A desperate Europe is grabbing all it can, leaving this East Asian nation literally in the dark. This will lead to civil unrest. We saw this in Sri Lanka in 2022. Violent riots racked the country following massive crop failures. A leading reason for the crop failures, a lack of fertilizer due to anti-natural gas, anti-fertilizer policies.
Wait, hold on a second.
The root cause of all these problems.
Wait, no. Okay, so I don't buy this. I don't buy this narrative at all. So he keeps going back to COVID, to policy or things that were because of COVID, right? Because of shipping problems. And he's saying it's because of anti-natural gas, anti-fertilizer policies. That's the reason for the lack of fertilizer.
Yeah.
2022.
Let's keep in mind he's also just saying it and not providing any evidence for his claims.
Okay. This is called the Aragalaya, also known as the struggle. Was a series of mass protests that began in March 2022 against the government of Sri Lanka. The government was heavily criticized for mismanaging the Sri Lankan economy, which led to a subsequent economic crisis involving severe inflation, daily blackouts, and a shortage of fuel, domestic gas, and other essential goods. Okay, so just right there, it's not because of anti-natural gas, anti-fertilizer policies caused by economic mismanagement by the government, resulting in the 2019 to present Sri Lankan economic crisis, shortages of fuel and essential items and power cuts, that's probably because of COVID, high inflation and the rapid rise in the cost of living, also that's probably in part due to COVID, authoritarianism, corruption, and the nepotism of the Rajapaksa family, which is the prominent Sri Lankan family. So, okay, so he's trying to boil down a series of related issues as just anti-natural gas, anti-fertilizer policies. That's ridiculous. Yeah, it's complicated. Yeah, no, the idea that it's just because of anti-natural gas, anti-fertilizer policies is so dishonest.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't corrupt oligarchs, right?
It's how many crop failures are happening because of climate change. Plants don't like being in dry spells. Yeah.
Correct. Yep. To be fair, that instance was in part due to the crackpot Vandana Shiva advising the government. Oh, I'm not disagreeing. I'm sure that food shortages were also probably part of the problem due to mismanagement. I have no doubt about that. But it's really disingenuous to frame it this way. He's saying like, okay, the violent riots were caused by the crop failures, which was caused by a lack of fertilizer due to anti-fertilizer policy. That's okay. Anyway, all right, let's keep going.
Problems and the very real suffering that results is the same. Not enough fossil fuel. But there is no need for shortages of fossil fuel. We have all the fossil fuel we need, and then some. We are literally standing on it. We just can't get to it. We can't get to it because governments have decided we shouldn't use fossil fuels. They say we're in a climate crisis. But while climate change, humans impacting climate, is a real thing, climate crisis is not. The world is slowly becoming warmer at a cold point in geological history when many more people die of cold than of heat. This doesn't at all justify rapidly restricting global fossil fuel use.
Pause. Wait, hold on a second. So the fact that more people are dying now, like the number of deaths increasing as a result of heat, like severe heat, that is increasing. So just saying more people presently die of cold, never mind the fact that more people are dying of severe heat every year. Don't worry about that. It's not relevant. Don't worry. That's so disingenuous. We have all the fossil fuel we need. Like, what does he mean when he says that? We need for how long? Forever? No. It's going to run out. It is a limited supply. We cannot run forever on fossil fuels. It's literally limited. Good God.
Yeah. We have the fossil fuel we need now. Not going to last you forever. I mean, you don't have to. It's not rocket science. That we are going to run out, and Are there places where we could find more, but we decided not to drill for those? I'm not entirely sure.
I mean, I think he's referring to like he's another sagebrush rebellion sort of person. You had like James Watt and other people back in like the 70s and 80s who were huge promoters of selling off federal land to private owners so they could drill on that public land. And that's just that. First of all, that's a very unpopular. If you poll the civilian population, it is very, very unpopular. Like people like having these parks, right? These natural wildlife areas. They don't like turning them into mining drilling operations. And we have ways to get around turning them into mining and drilling operations, right? We don't have to do that.
Yeah.
We can make energy other ways. So, okay, we can keep going.
Fossil fuels actually make us far safer from climate by providing low-cost energy for the amazing machines that protect us against storms, protect us against extreme temperatures, and alleviate drought. Climate disaster deaths have decreased 98% over the last century. The only rational approach to reducing fossil fuels climate...
I'm willing to bet he means storms, and that's a very dishonest framing. That is extremely dishonest framing. Hey, fun fact. Guess Jillian, Equatorial South Pole says, hey, fun fact, guess what's going up? If you guess the number of people dying of heat-related causes, you'd be right. What? What? Enough with the anti-fertilizer diatribe. I'm not anti-fertilizer. I'm willing to bet what he means by reducing like climate impacts is like people surviving like harsh weather. I bet that's what he means, which is very disingenuous. Actually, I'm curious. Let's see. Deaths by heat-related causes. Let's take a look. Wow, would you look at that? It's increasing. Wow, who would have guessed? Heat-related deaths keep piling up in Texas, even as candidates shy from climate. Yeah. Shock and awe. What is this? Heat-related workplace deaths has gone up, especially in construction, since the 1990s. It used to be lower, according to the Environmental Protection Agency. More fatalities. Where'd it go? Whoops, I just lost it. How many people die from extreme heat in the U.S.? I promise I passed classes where I learned how to read. I swear, folks. There were 1,714 heat-related fatalities in 2022. That is more than any other year. It only precedes, or only followed by the year prior to that, and then only followed by the year prior to that. So 2021, 1,600, and then 2020, 1,153.
As if there's a trend.
Heat-related. You're right. It's like there's a trend or something.
Yeah.
More fatalities occur due to heat than other natural disasters. The 30-year average. So, yeah, okay. More people die from heat than hurricanes, floods, rip currents, winter, wind, cold, tornado, and lightning. So in 2022, over a 10-year average and over a 30-year average, more people have died from heat over the last 30 years than from any other cause. And heat waves are growing in intensity.
Yeah.
At the national level. Oh, sorry. Recent historical trends demonstrate that increases in the frequency, length, and intensity of heat waves show little sign of abating. At the national level, 9 of the 10 warmest years on records for the 48 contiguous states have occurred since 1998. Meanwhile, the number of extreme heat days in some states is 5 times higher than 40 years ago. Americans and cities are also at risk from the health impacts of intensifying heat waves. Heat wave seasons, defined as the number of days between the first and the last heat wave of a year, are growing longer for U.S. cities. From about 24 days in the 1960s to 73 days in the 2020s. Environmental Protection Agency data notes that the average duration of heat waves per year in the metropolitan area has increased from 2 days per year to 6. Okay, so in other words, he's lying. Everything he just said is a lie. He's completely wrong about everything he said. The climate change is only getting worse. People are dying in greater numbers from climate change. So he's just wrong across the board.
Yep.
Yes, PragerU has alternative facts. Is PragerU lying to us? I know. Almost certain the video was made less than 30 years ago. You would be correct about that. That's right. Jillian says, wait, that can't be right. Winter's on the list, and he said more people die of the cold. That's right. He did say that. And he's wrong. I don't know what data he's relying on, but maybe they use data from the 70s.
From the 70s.
Yeah, that's possible. That could be the case. Maybe he was using data from way back then, maybe. But yeah. So no, more people are dying from heat than from cold. So he's just wrong. Okay. All right. Let's keep on
impacts is a long-term one based on developing truly competitive, reliable forms of energy, most promisingly nuclear energy. Unfortunately, instead of taking this rational approach, governments declared a climate crisis and started immediately restricting fossil fuels with no viable replacement. They pretended that solar and wind could somehow replace fossil fuels. But since these fuels are inherently unreliable, they can go to near zero at any given time.
Hey, Peter,
there was never any reason to believe this.
Peter, did you know that we just place, wind and solar panels just kind of anywhere? We have no regard for places that are more likely to receive sun or less, or more places that are more likely to receive wind. Did you know that all these things are just inherently unreliable?
Yeah.
We can't store power that we've accumulated from these modes. Did you know that, Peter? I'm learning this right now.
It's so weird that and it's so unreliable that we have about half of my country was made using wind energy because we had windmills that pumped the water away from the land, creating new land. And it was so unreliable that we never got new land. Oh, wait, no, that didn't happen. I mean, I want to see the figures that he has. How is it unreliable? Show me how it's unreliable. I mean, even with solar power, even if it's overcast, you will still get solar power.
Yeah.
And it's getting pretty good where you can get a lot of solar power even when it's overcast. So I don't know where he's getting his numbers from.
I also don't know. It's likely he's not getting them from anywhere. It's also worth pointing out, Smitty's right. You can use fossil fuels in the short term to supplement these other sources as we get better at using them. That's true. We can absolutely do that. The other thing is, if you look back just at the previous administration, right? So Biden talked a lot about the climate change crisis, but he also opened up lines of drilling, like in the Gulf, for instance. And part of the reason for that was to stabilize our the energy that we were getting, so that we were less reliant on other countries, which is fine. But like, nobody is saying, as Smitty points out, nobody's saying we have to stop fossil fuels today. The idea is we phase them out as we transition to other sources, right? That's the idea. But the fossil fuel industry doesn't want us to do that either. They don't want to phase out fossil fuels as we move towards like nuclear, as we make renewable energy sources better. They don't want to do that because that will impact their bottom line. They want to, source, he made it up, yeah. They want to keep fossil fuels and lie about all the other ones. Like, that's what they want at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. So. And you want to know something really amazing, Jackson?
What?
I seem to have paused the screen at the very moment that all of the evidence for his claims is being displayed on screen.
Oh, yeah.
You see it?
I do see it. I do. Yeah, I can see all.
Now
the
we're suffering.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good. Yeah.
The consequences of their folly. Instead of rapidly expanding our fossil fuel production, we're begging Saudi Arabia and Venezuela to expand theirs. Europe, which once enjoyed energy security, is now dependent on Russia for the natural gas it needs to heat its homes and power its industry. And outrageously, instead of apologizing for the disastrous anti-fossil fuel policies that caused today's energy crisis, our so-called experts are confidently doubling down, advocating for even more aggressive elimination of fossil fuel production. Every nation will suffer from the global energy crisis, but those with the least will suffer the most. Many will die, sacrificed on the altar of a climate crisis that doesn't exist. How long will we let this continue? I'm Alex Epstein, author of Fossil Future for Prager University.
Epstein.
The only constant is change.
All right, pause for a second.
Very unfortunate name.
First of all, I think that that guy was he was kind of scary looking.
Yes,
he did look a little scary.
It's like he would look like angry even when he's smiling because of his eyebrows being formed that way.
The Botox,
Mm-hmm.
It's keeping his face up is doing that.
Yeah.
Germany has nuclear power. France has nuclear power. Yeah. Like I said, the fossil fuel industry, if it really wanted to move towards nuclear, it could. They could do that. They choose not to. It has nothing to do with being energy independent. It has everything to do with the bottom line. They do not want to move towards nuclear, and they don't want to move towards renewable. Which is funny because back in the 70s, fossil fuel industries actually did do a lot of research on renewable forms of energy. They did. They used to. And then they stopped because they realized it was less profitable than lying about the effects of fossil fuels. So the countries that are being hit hard by climate crises are, again, it's not just climate crises. They're being hit from a variety of regions, things that are interrelated, right? So the issues are, one, a lot of these countries are very poor because they're run by, whether it's corrupt authoritarians, they might have been overthrown by the U.S. at one time or another. Maybe there are serious embargo or tariffs on them. Like, just saying that these people are suffering because of climate change policies is nonsense. That is not the reason for any country to have an energy crisis. It's just nonsense. I genuinely challenge you to show me a single country that is having a crisis explicitly because of climate change policies and not because of like a variety of issues. Okay. All right. Are we ready for this next guy?
Let's see what
Patrick
he has to
Moore,
say.
co-founder of Greenpeace. Let's see, Greenpeace. Let's look this organization up. Greenpeace. Okay. Greenpeace is an independent global campaigning network founded in Canada in 1971 by a group of environmental activists. Greenpeace states its goal is to ensure the ability of the Earth to nurture life in all its diversity, and focuses on campaigning on worldwide issues such as climate change, deforestation, overfishing, commercial whaling, genetic engineering, anti-war, and anti-nuclear issues. It uses direct action, advocacy, research, and ecotage. Oh, it's like sabotage. Okay. So, what do you call that? Like green, like eco-terrorism or whatever? Okay. All right. Well, let's.
Well, I didn't know this. Nan said Patrick Moore, the guy that refused to drink a cup of Roundup after he declared that it was safe to drink.
Wait, that's him?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
I think if you make a claim like that, you should absolutely prove it by doing so.
They should do the thing like in Princess Bride. You know, they both take the shot. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see.
According to this, it says that they call for greenhouse gas emissions to decrease to 0 by 2050. Okay. All right. Well, let's hear what let's hear what he has to say.
That's true about life, and it's true about the climate. The climate has been constantly changing since the Earth was formed 4.6 billion years ago.
All right.
For example, in just the past 2,000 years, we have seen the Roman warm period, when it was warmer than today. Then came the cooler Dark Ages, followed by the medieval warm period, when it was at least as warm as today. Then we had the Little Ice Age that drove the Vikings out of Greenland, and most recently, a gradual 300-year warming to the present day. That's a lot of changes.
Pause.
And of course...
Pause. This guy is a hack. This guy's a dishonest hack. Hackery. God, okay. First of all, the Earth's climate has always been changing. They will never, ever, no matter how many times they say this, they will never point to a single example in Earth's history of a time when the climate either cooled, right? The temperature went down, or the temperature went up, and tell you how long that lasted. They will never, ever do that. How long did it take for the Ice Age to occur? It took hundreds of thousands of years, right? We had glacial and interglacial periods that lasted hundreds of thousands of years. Or when it got warmer, the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, it took hundreds of thousands of years. The Permian-Triassic mass extinction warming period took 2 million years, right? This hackery. They will never talk about how long it takes for these changes to occur. And then they go, ooh, but what about the medieval warm period? First of all, it is a lie that it was warmer in the medieval warm period than it is today. That is not true. And the medieval warm period was restricted almost entirely to the North Atlantic. It was not a worldwide phenomenon. It was specifically a Northern Atlantic phenomenon. Oh, these guys are just such hacks. It's just such an annoying argument. It's like creationism. These arguments are like, we've never observed an experiment that increases information. That's like this level of argumentation. They says, oh, we've witnessed a gradual increase in Earth's climate. It's warmer now than it has been in the last like several 100,000 years. Right now. That just he's so dumb. He's so dumb. I hate these people so much.
Well, he's either dumb or he's smart, because he's probably making money off of this video.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Sapphire's right. What about the end Cretaceous meteoric impact? You know what? In fairness, that was probably overnight. So that only took a day. You know, it only took 6-kilometer object hitting the Earth to to cause global cooling, right? So let's just do that again. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. Hold on. What was it? I'm sorry. I don't know why I said. I'm sorry. I said 6 kilometers. I meant 6 miles. It was 10 kilometers, 6 miles. I had to fact check myself. That's 6 miles. So all we have to do is throw another 6-mile bolide at the Earth, and boom, climate crisis solved. It'll be cool overnight. I don't know why these scientists don't just come up with that as a solution. Bunch of idiots. Because they're paid by big warming to make the Earth warmer, you know.
And Jackson, remember the previous guy saying that there was no nation that was suffering because of climate change?
Right, yeah.
Brian Stevens just put a link in the chat to a video, which I've opened up. And the title of the video is Save Tuvalu, Save the World. This original documentary from the Australia Institute takes viewers to the front line of the destruction that climate change is causing in the Pacific island nation of Tuvalu. So, apparently there is a nation that is suffering due to climate change.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
seawater
island
is
nations
being...
are absolutely... Yeah, right. As the oceans rise, it's going to flood islands, and that's going to cause problems for the people who live on said islands.
Well, here it's being pushed up through the land, destroying the traditional crops and making the water unfit to drink. Which...
Cool.
Yeah. So...
Okay, let's keep going.
Okay.
Of course, not one of them was caused by humans. During the past 400,000 years...
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, pause for a second. I'm sorry, I know I just said we can start. But, okay, so he just said that climate change is not caused by humans. Remember, the guy we literally just watched, also on PragerU, said that climate change is being caused by humans, but that's not a problem. So PragerU has 2 different videos on their channel, one of which says climate change is real, but it's not a problem. And the other, that says anthropogenic climate change, man-made climate change is real, but not a problem. And the other says man-made climate change is not real. These are existing simultaneously on PragerU. They cannot even keep their...
But Jackson, keep in mind...
the lore right.
You are not supposed to watch the videos back to back in the way that we are doing, because and it's the same thing. It's the same thing with Answers in Genesis, putting out papers or articles, not papers, contradicting themselves, and thinking that people won't put the articles back to back and see that they're literally contradicting themselves. That's not how we're supposed to do that.
Wasn't that what's his name who did that? Peter, what was his name?
The first one that I came across, Potholer 54, and then I saw Paulogia did a video where he pulled up a few articles, and most recently Onra did that when he was doing his series about the global flood. So... Yeah, there are several instances.
Video.
Yeah,
he talks about how Egypt was repopulated after the global flood, and in one one article they say it's like, oh, well, it happened like this, but then in a different article they say no, it was like this, and they're like directly in contradiction with one another.
And he also there also were 2 articles where camels and llamas were apparently one specific kind, and then in another article they were not the same kind. That's another one that Potholer dug up, and that was related to the Egypt repopulation. Yeah, it's fun.
Creationists or pseudoscientists in general, guys, come here, come close, lean in. If you're gonna make like a narrative contrary to the science to the mainstream view. At least keep the lore consistent. Whatever
Jackson,
your argument is, at least make sure it's consistent, please.
But Jackson, it's not only them. I mean, at the moment, you have in the United States this real thing that illegal immigrants are taking away your jobs, and then they're also the people who don't work and seem to be living off of Social Security. Which of the two is it? Are
Correct.
they?
Yeah, exactly.
They come here to live off of Social Security and they're stealing our jobs at the same time? Which is it?
Well, they're just trying to have dual income, Peter, don't you know?
Pick a side.
Yeah, you're right. That's one of those really stupid arguments, which, of course, illegal immigrants can't get Social Security anyway, so, you know.
And that's not just the United States, because we've got morons like that in the Netherlands as well. We can't have any refugees.
Like the AFD over in Germany.
Yeah, we can't have any refugees because they will rely on Social Security, and we can't pay for that. And then they're stealing our money, stealing our jobs, so the Dutch don't have jobs anymore. I mean, it's same thing. And sadly enough, it's the same people doing it too, same kind of people.
Yes. Vandalia 1998 for $1.99 says it's just a retcon. I guess that's true. Fibonacci single-celled trilobites 8 says the lore is my shepherd, I shall not retcon. That's pretty good. I like that. Yeah. It's just, oh guys, come on, just keep your lore straight, please. That's all I ask. Keep the lore straight. Okay. We'll do a little bit more and then we'll call it.
Okay.
Have been 4 major periods of glaciation, meaning that vast sheets of ice covered a good part of the globe, interrupted by brief interglacial periods. We are in one of those periods right now. This is all part of the Pleistocene Ice Age, which began in earnest 2.5 million years ago. It's still going on, which means that we are still living in an ice age.
Holocene,
that's the reason there's so much ice at the poles. 30 million years ago, the Earth had no ice on it at all. So then what about carbon dioxide, the great villain of the global warming alarmists?
Peter, I love that he's just like, okay, so first of all, no, we are not in the Pleistocene Ice Age anymore because we're not in the Pleistocene anymore. We are in the Holocene, and we have been for the last, 12,000 years, you dummy. Second of all, I love that he's like, well, don't you know that 30 million years ago, there were no global ice caps? There are no ice caps, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, the Earth was a lot warmer back then, and the sea levels were a lot higher than they are now. Is that supposed to be an argument for something? Like, there were no humans either. There were no cities. They didn't exist. Okay, I'm sorry.
There was a lot of fossil fuel back then. Maybe I don't know. I run out of arguments.
I don't know. All right, let's keep going.
Where does that fit into this picture? Not as neatly as you might think.
Dun, dun,
Temperatures and carbon dioxide levels do not show a strong correlation. In fact, over very long time spans, periods of hundreds of millions of years, they are often completely out of sync with one another. Over and over again, within virtually any time frame.
Over hundreds of millions of years. Now, can I ask what people did during those hundreds of millions of years ago to create climate change? Were there any humans? How does that have anything to do with what we're facing now and the numbers, the clear numbers that we have today? I don't get it.
So, Peter, the thing is, he's doing what we call in the business lying right now.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll notice, everyone will direct your attention to the chart that's on screen right now. Do you see any citations whatsoever on it?
Nope.
No. There's a reason you don't see any citations, because he's pulling this out of his butt. He is lying. If you look, on the other hand, at citations that compare temperature with carbon dioxide, they are very closely related. In fact, I actually use a slide in my when I talk to my students about climate change that shows the relationship between Earth temperature and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Where is it? Here it is. Yeah, if you look at ice core data, the carbon dioxide immediately precedes. I know. Well, Peter, I know we can't show this because it's, I should have asked beforehand. I didn't think about it, but there's a chart that I use that's really good, and it has ice core data for the last 400,000 years. And what it shows is, very obviously, there is an extremely good correlation between carbon dioxide, methane, and temperature. These are extraordinarily well correlated. Like it's like the same line over and over again in all three cases. So there's more carbon dioxide and there's more methane, and this immediately thereafter causes an increase in temperature. As there's less carbon dioxide, the temperature drops. Like it's yeah, I don't see any units on the axes, right? Actually, is that a graph or just squiggles? It is just squiggles. You're right.
Well, what I do see that there is a correlation. So if you look at the line for the temperature, and when the carbon goes down, the temperature goes down, and then the carbon goes up again, and temperature goes up again, while he's saying that that's not happening. And also, time seems to progress faster for temperature than it does for carbon.
Don't you know, Peter? Temperature goes faster than carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
Percentage of the atmosphere. That's just how that works. It's physics, obviously. Yeah, he's just making up. Let me see. Okay, so I see what he's talking about. Okay, so Brian put in a paper here, the relationship between temperature and carbon dioxide emissions, evidence from a short and very long data set. The debate regarding rising temperatures and carbon dioxide emissions has attracted the attention of economists employing recent econometric techniques. This article extends the previous literature using a data set that covers 800,000 years, as well as a shorter data set, and examines the interaction between temperature and carbon dioxide emissions. Unit root tests reveal a difference between the two data sets. For the long data set, all tests support the view that both temperature and carbon dioxide are stationary around a constant. For the short data set, temperature exhibits trend stationary behavior, while carbon dioxide contains a unit root. This result is robust to nonlinear trends or trend breaks. Modeling the long data set reveals that while contemporaneous carbon dioxide appears positive and significant in the temperature equation, including lags results in a joint effect that is near zero. This result is confirmed using a different lag structure and vector autoregressive model. A generalized method of moments approach to account for endogeneity suggests an insignificant relationship. In sum, the key results from our analysis is that carbon dioxide has at best a weak relationship with temperature, while there is no evidence of trending when using a sufficiently long data set. Thus, as a secondary result, we highlight the danger of using a small sample in this context. I am skeptical. I am very skeptical of these results. That is contrary to pretty much everything I've ever seen. So I'm very skeptical of that. I don't know. Let me see. Applied economics. Let me see. Let's see, Google Scholar. This has only been cited by 19 people in that time period. Yeah, I'm. Oh, are you saying, Brian, that this is probably what they're relying on? Because I'm very skeptical of this. Global CO2 emissions and global temperatures, are they related? This is also an economics journal rather than in a climate journal, so that is a little surprising to me. Hold on. We're doing research in real time, folks. That's what we're doing.
In other words, not directly causative, correlated.
Yeah, I would be very surprised, but this is an applied economics journal, and I find that very suspect. Wait a second, hold on. This can't be right. Wait. Am I crazy? The paper shows. Oh, is this is just saying. Wait a minute. Am I going crazy? Hold on. Do I need to read this whole paper now? Peter, the paper itself shows charts in which temperature correlates with carbon dioxide emissions.
See?
That's why I'm like, am I just misunderstanding what the paper's saying? They are varying around a mean, around an average, but both of them are very strongly correlating with each other.
Brian says this is the only citation I could find that supports the non-causative position.
Yeah, that must be. Yeah, I would be very shocked by this. Peter, I know you can't show it, but this is crazy. Their paper. Yeah, the paper shows that temperature and carbon dioxide in figure 1 and in figure 2 are very strongly correlated. But the paper concludes that they're not correlated. What? Okay. Well, thank you for the paper. That is pretty crazy. That they would claim that. I'm sorry, I know we're going over time, but I was very curious. But the paper itself, like, go to the paper that Brian put in there. Yes, they're cherry picking this study that concludes there is no relationship, but figures 1 and 2 both show a relationship between carbon dioxide and temperature. That's so silly. That is so ridiculous. Well, thank you for finding that, Brian. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's crazy. Okay. Anyway, all right. So this chart also. So Brian posted a paper that is arguing for no relationship between temperature and carbon emissions, but that very paper does not show what they're showing on the screen right now. This is not the same thing. He's just making up this chart as a little graphic, basically. So, okay. All right, Peter. We're going to call it for today. So if
we need to play a few more seconds.
Okay.
Thank you for watching this video. To keep PragerU debunked, please consider donating through a super chat or a super thanks. Thank you.
I love it.
There we go. We do have to do that. I put in the effort to make it in the PragerU screen.
I like it. I think it looks great.
And people can zoom in and look for the Easter eggs on that last screen. There are a few.
I like it. So okay, so far, I mean, we've shown these videos are. He's like oversimplifying very complex data. Then the other guy was just lying. Basically, he was cherry picking while not showing any sort of actual data set. So okay. So thank you everybody for watching, and then we will see all of you probably next week.
Next week, and hopefully our good friend Neslik won't be confined to the lab and be joining us in that one. I did have a camera on Neslik. If you look in the back, I am spying on in his lab. He's on screen, so he was here in spirit. Okay, so shall we end this?
Yep. Thanks everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye everyone.